We are recording and transcribing.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It is 10:02, and I'm going to get this meeting started in respect of everybody's time. Please make sure you go into the chat. Jennifer has put in a link to both the agenda and also a link to sign in. So please sign in, and then we can get a good count on who attended. And with that said, I will go ahead and call the meeting to order at 10:02. We can start with the CenturyLink Lumen System Performance Reports. I know that Tracy is on the phone.
Hey, Kathy, I signed on to Google Meets. We rearranged a few things because Tim and Jeff are traveling, as is Rich Johnson from Entrado. So it's only me.
Okay.
And I apologize in advance. I do have another call at 10:30, but since we usually go first, that should be okay.
Okay.
But if anything comes up afterwards, please ping me and I'll get back with you.
Okay. So do you want to go through your reports then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I shot an email over to Jennifer and Kathy this morning. I did see on April 7th, we had a spike on this first slide here. As a reminder, this is just network performance where we are pinging each probe every 7 seconds. I opened a ticket with Carl Klein, who is our NOC manager, to take a look at this. However, I understand he's on vacation this week. Usually there are various reasons we can't hit the server. That's why we just keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. I don't know if there was an outage, if it was just busy. I'll have to have Carl look at that when he gets back, but that's going to explain the null time there. And I'm pretty sure it's kind of small. It was April 6th or 7th that happened. So once Carl gets back, I'll ping him again and see what might have happened on April 7th. I didn't get anything as far as an incident or an issue, and Lumen wasn't doing any maintenance. So it's unexplainable until I can talk to Carl. All of the rest of the charts are where they should be within range of the tariff. We look at the one by PSAP, and that's what we would expect. The next one, I think there is the ECMC route. Again, everything well within the range of the tariff. If you go down and look at the packet loss percentage, those are what we expect to see as well. And then jitter, again, remember that the measurements here are shown in microseconds, just because if we did milliseconds, nothing would show up on this final chart. But again, everything for the month of April, with the exception of that little spike on April 7th, well within the range of what the tariff requires.
Okay. Sounds good. And the next thing we have then is the ECATS implementation progress report. Tracy, I don't know if you have an update on that.
I can share. I'm continuing to work on this with Courtney at Entrado. She sent a few questions over to the Lumen team this week. And with Jeff Winkleman traveling, I'm going to be getting with him hopefully Friday. Just some last minute questions that she has for us. I know there's a couple, we need to clarify who their text provider is. I do have I'm looking at the sheet right now, there's maybe 15 PSAPs out there where we still haven't received the necessary IP form. So we will be reaching out to each one of those PSAPs individually to see how we can help them. I think there's a couple, Kathy, you shared with me that they're either no longer going to be a PSAP or they already have moved, to another PSAP for their calls. So we'll definitely update those. But they're moving along. I think we're just under 50% done. These are going to start billing shortly, so we really would like to get everybody's information so Entrado can get the training done, so that once the invoices start coming, you're actually utilizing the service. It will be a year, the end of this month, that this went into effect. So that was the goal, is to complete the rollout within 1 year. And my plan is by the end of the week, I'll send an email out to each of the individual PSAPs. Kathy, if you want, I can copy you as well, or just send you the full list so you have it.
Yeah, that would be great. And if you don't mind copying Jennifer on that as well.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any questions or any comments? Any questions for Tracy on the implementation? Matt?
Yeah, I guess we're still waiting on a status update for our implementation. I know for several weeks we were waiting for Lumen to get the right cable.
Matt, I apologize. Which PSAP are you with?
Sorry, Westco Dispatch.
That's okay. Westco. I don't have you on my list. Let me see. Seeing if she has any notes from Westco. Have you, so you haven't, I have you down as training. Let's see. Westco, Montrose, Westco?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have something 417 from Intrado, and it does look like they were ordering some cabling. So I'll follow up on that right now and see what happened to it. I don't see anything else from Intrado since that date. And again, that was
the
17th.
Installation just kind of ran into that brick wall, and
Yep.
We were told that it was sufficiently completed other than the cable, and then after that, everything that remained could be done remotely.
Okay.
But we're not actually clear from the techs where we're actually at.
Okay. I see that you're on the email chain as well, so I'll just respond and get that over to Intrado, and hopefully they'll get back in touch with us today.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to the strategic plan update. So we last met on April 24th. The committee did, and again, thank you to all of you who have stepped up to be on that committee and help with the redrafting of this document. But we met on April 24th, and what we have started doing, I'll go back to the first meeting. What we did was we developed we talked about what it was that we wanted to see, that we thought the state needed. And from that, we developed a SWOT analysis, went through that. Kimberly Culp put together a very nice diagram for us, indicating the different pieces and where they fall within either the PSAP or under Lumen or CenturyLink. And then at the last meeting on the 24th, we started going through the old document. Or I should say the current document that we have. And we just started at the beginning, and we actually made some good progress going through it, keeping in mind what it was that we thought the document should look like. It should be very high level bullet points. We've redlined quite a few things and got through that. It took a better part of an hour to get through that section, but I thought we made pretty good progress. After that, Jennifer sent that out to the committee, the part that we had worked on, and asked for any other comments. Jennifer, did you get anything back from anybody on that?
No, I haven't. I looked through the document real quickly yesterday when we were doing the scheduling, and I didn't see any other comments, but it was a cursory look. So
Okay.
If you submitted, that doesn't mean it isn't there. It just means I didn't see it.
Okay, no problem. So we did send it out because there were some things that a couple people were thinking about chewing on. And we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday or tomorrow, but I dropped the ball on that. And so our next meeting will be Monday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that is where we are with the strategic plan. On Monday, we will go through the next couple of sections, as much as we can get through on the current document, to determine what we want to keep, what we don't want to keep. Same process as what we did. This is going to take a little bit of time, but in the end, it is going to be worth it. We're going to have a document that outlines what what we think the state, what we should see in the future, and we will have a consensus among the committee members and hopefully among everybody in the state. Once we do have it done, like I've said before, we will send it out to everybody on this committee for review, and then we will move forward from there. And that is the strategic plan update. Any questions? Okay, outage investigations, findings, discussion. Jennifer, is that you?
It's actually Daryl.
Oh, Daryl.
I think he's on the meeting, so.
Oh.
He was. Are you still
Yeah,
here,
he
Daryl?
is. I see him. There he is. Yeah, I
Okay.
see him.
Here I am. Yeah, I didn't realize that was on the agenda today. Let me pull that up real quick so we can share that.
I've got it on
Surprise.
the screen.
Oh, you've got it on screen. Great. So one of the things that I've done recently is gone back over the outage investigations over the last year. So really just a little over a year ago, we started doing staff-led investigations based on the new rule 2143K of the commission's rules, which directs commission staff to do investigations of outages that meet certain requirements. The reason why I think it's a useful topic for this group instead of just the outage committee, although I think it's a good topic for the outage committee as well, is that what this document does is it outlines specific things that have come up in multiple outages or seem to be ongoing issues that might be good topics of discussion for the 911 community to have with CenturyLink and its contractor Intrado. So, Jennifer, I don't know if do you have it up on your screen right now, or are you the one running the webcast?
She is.
It helps if I unmute. Yes,
There you go.
I am running through it. Do you want me to scroll through it?
Yeah, if you could just kind of scroll through it and I can kind of talk about some of the stuff that's in here. So basically anything that was a issue or a theme in an outage that specifically happened more than once, that's what I've documented here. So delayed PSAP notifications, and I provide links to these specific outage investigations where this was potentially an issue. Apparent delays in dispatching field technicians, if you want to keep scrolling. Improper configuration or grooming of circuits to take advantage of existing physical infrastructure. PSAPs not being notified of maintenance that has the potential to cause an outage. And I'm not going to go through all of these. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what's in here and suggest that maybe this is something that the ESInet users group would want to identify particular issues in here that they want to discuss with CenturyLink going forward. And the reason why I think this is a good group to do that is because the ESInet users group represents, at least theoretically, to the extent that local agencies want to participate, every 911 authority in the state. And some of this may have some implications on future development of the ESInet and the service that CenturyLink provides. Additionally, there's some just general best practices that have been identified through the investigations. And then this item at the bottom, items to watch for the future. These are things that have not come up multiple times, but they're things that we think may be things that could come up again in the future. So we put them here just kind of as a way to keep an eye on them. And if they do come up again, then they can be added up above where the multiple items are. So yeah, and some of these things may have happened more than one time. They just weren't included in more than one actual outage investigation. So if anybody has any questions, and Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, the task force establishes the criteria for outage investigations. Do you
Correct.
think we should consider this in regarding a potential modification of the criteria?
I am going to bring this document up at tomorrow's task force meeting. Whether the task force wants to modify its criteria or not, I think is up to the task force. But personally, I think the criteria that we have is pretty good, but it's up to the task force if they want to change it.
Thank you.
And I will say too, this is a living document. So as I complete investigations, I will be updating this. And let me put the link where you can find this document on programs. It's on our
I
911
just shared the
program
link
page.
into the chat, Daryl.
Oh,
and
well,
it's
thank you.
also in the folder for today's meeting.
I'm also going to put the link for the page where you can find this. So if you want to bookmark the whole page, because that page also has a list of all of the investigations that we've done, including the current active investigations. And yes, and there's also information about how those investigations are handled, what the stages of the investigations are, et cetera. Some of this may change after our current rulemaking. We'll see. I can't say anything more about that right now because I know that's something the judge is considering, but that is the process that we have currently. If anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to try to answer those. Okay,
Doesn't
thank
sound
you.
like it, Daryl. Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for that information, Daryl. We appreciate it too. Well, we are moving right along in our agenda. The next thing we have is public comment. Any non-voting members are welcome to provide comments during this portion. So do we have any non-voting members that would like to bring anything forward? Must be Wednesday. All right. Oh, Jennifer, go ahead.
I just had a question for Metza. I know that you guys have been trying to get some answers about non-initialized cell phones coming into the center, and I keep seeing you answer people on PS Connect about this topic, which I appreciate the insight that you provide. Do you have anything to update, or have you had any information come back on that particular topic?
Alex, do you have anything? Let me ping him.
It's okay. I just wanted, I think this would be a good place to share that information when you get it. So when you guys have something to share, I'd love to see it on the agenda.
It looks like Alex was multitasking. Would you ask again? Excuse me.
Sure. Sorry to put you on the spot, Alex. But I saw that you have been active in the PS Connect chat rooms talking about your non-initialized cell phone issues. And I just wondered if you'd had any information come back on any resolution of that.
No, I haven't got anything back from Cody on that. That was actually the second instance I saw people talking about it in the PS Connect. There was another one out of Dallas, Texas, I believe, and somebody did reply back to me on that one with a little bit of information. I can share that with you and see if that is helpful in providing to Lumen to see if they have more answers on it. But it seems like, as far as we've understood in our search so far, it's a recurring issue, not too frequent in our remote area, but definitely seems isolated to a specific area. And maybe, you know, that NSI factor of not having a good callback number and proper alley is causing, you know, the system, whether it's Intrado or Lumen or the carrier's handoff to 911 to not provide coordinate information and other stuff. It's just triggering this default code of dialing the direct trunk, even though we've documented at least a dozen instances that it was a true 911 dial and not, you know, and with an active customer with a good callback number. So But I can pass on all that information I have. I didn't get too much.
Perfect. Thank you for the update. And thanks for engaging with people on PS Connect, because I find it helpful to see what you have to share.
Yeah, no problem.
Yep. Thank you both. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious about how that's presenting to the PSAP. I wasn't really understanding exactly what the situation is.
Joe, this is Alex again. So pretty basically is in Alley, in there, the phone Alley Pane Investa, in our case, it's just presenting with a 000-911-0000. And then that's a generated code for Annie to say that, hey, somebody dialed the direct trunk. That is one way we're getting these calls. But another common issue is for an NSI phone that presents with a 911 area code and then 7 digits that are part of the device's ID, since there is no registered callback number. And that still will send coordinate information and other location information along with that call that can be used to find that person and potentially do something about it, versus this inadvertent 00, Annie code that gives you no location information and no usable alley for locating that caller, which in some instances is people calling that have a device capable of providing coordinates and calling back.
Do you know if it concerns one particular carrier?
Our investigation has shown all carriers there that have had active service. We're trying to hone in on if maybe a particular carrier's tower or some other device along the process is having the hang up and not passing on the proper alley for those, or proper device information with those calls, whether that's a roaming issue, agreements, or something else. We don't really know.
And have you consulted with Lumen on this, with the knock on this? Are they any help?
Matt might be able to provide more insight on that. I know I provided all of that to him and he passed it on to various parties. I don't know who or how far that's gotten though.
We traded a few emails, but the last response from Lumen was a couple of months ago. They asked if we were continuing to experience these calls. We said yes. Alex provided 2 examples, and we've not heard back from Lumen since then.
I think one of the purposes of the user group was so that we could bring kind of issues to Lumen that weren't being addressed adequately.
Matt, was that by chance? Do you remember who you were talking to? Was it Colleen?
The last email. I'm sorry, who's asking the question?
Oh, this is Andrew. I'm sorry.
Andrew, the last email we have was from you, and including Jeff, on February 6th.
Okay, I'll look at it. I think that issue is being looked at, but I couldn't remember if the knock was working directly with you. So
No.
I'll go back, review that, and get it going again.
All right. Thank you. Kimberly, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess I was just a bit confused on how is this an ESInet or a CenturyLink issue? I mean, I see it as a wireless carrier roaming NSI issue, which we've been tackling in conversations for the last, solid year off and on, but I'm having a hard time connecting the dot on how is this an ESInet issue?
Anybody elaborate on that?
This is Alex again. I guess my only thought with it and how it would connect to the ESInet is we haven't yet identified if this is, I know the NSI thing is, would be a carrier side thing, but we haven't identified if maybe the failure of passing on those NSI calls is triggering, whether with Intrado or Lumen, this 00911 code that provides no alley when it could have been passed in the traditional NSI, handling of calls. So there could be something on the Lumen side that is an issue, but we haven't ruled that out.
Kimberly, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, so when there's a caller on the phone and it's an actual 911 calls place, so it's not an NSI phone, and there's a callback number that is available. What we found with all of the research and working with the carriers, that this is a roaming issue. A lot of it has to do with a roaming issue, meaning that somebody dialed 911 and they could not have the call processed on their T-Mobile device, so they roamed over to AT&T. Passing of the caller information, we would think it would be easy, and we've learned that it could be easy, like a box being checked, and then that caller information, at least callback number, could pass when it roams. But there's no FCC order requiring that. So we've done a lot of work in this area, and I'm happy to push it out and share it. It's what we found is really not an ESInet issue. It's more of a wireless carrier roaming behavior issue, and we really could use the FCC to open up some sort of NOPR so we can comment and maybe make some requirements around calls when they roam off their network onto another network. So we've even approached this with the FCC. So I don't know if that would help you, Matt and Andrew, or Alex. I mean, I can send that over to you, that information that we worked on as it relates to roaming calls.
That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send that out.
Thanks, Kimberly. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Any other questions? Well, first, regarding the topic that was just brought up.
I forgot who asked about this in the first place.
That was me. This
I
is
think
Jennifer.
this started with Jennifer. Yeah.
Does that,
Yeah.
Jennifer, does that help your question then?
It does, and actually, I appreciate having the conversation in this space. It just underscores the value of the ESInet users group to have that conversation and see who else is struggling with stuff and who else is working on it. So I appreciate the information sharing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kimberly, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this at the task force as well when this was brought up, and brought that information in, and our task force partners with T-Mobile and Vero assisted with that conversation too. So we probably have some information from that meeting at the task force where this was discussed that we can share with everybody.
And Kimberly, just correct me if I'm not right, but was this had something to do with the like sundowning of like the 3G?
That's when we saw you're right, Kathy,
Okay.
that's when we saw in the state, at least up here in Northern Colorado, a big increase of those calls is when some carriers turned down 3G, 4G networks. Others carriers kept that infrastructure up. And so when those callers would place a 911 call, they were roaming off of their home network onto that other network because the call can be processed. And then they would have a callback number, and you can truly call back that number. However, your Annie Alley is displaying that it's an NSI call. So it was really confusing, hard to track down. But in presenting that to the carriers, so they could understand and dive into their networks to see what was going on, 100% of the time it was roaming.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Carol, go ahead.
So I did have a conversation with the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau at the FCC, which they also included one of their engineers in that discussion. And the engineer, frankly, I kind of felt like they blew me off a little bit. They made it sound like it was an engineering issue where if they're not trading, if they don't have a data roaming agreement between the two carriers, then they can't provide the data that would be necessary to provide an Annie as well as a location, or at least a precise location for the caller. So I think it would be very helpful if we could collect some data on how much this is impacting local agencies and provide that to the FCC so that maybe it becomes a little bit higher priority for them, because they just kind of, at least the conversation I had with them, it felt like they were kind of shrugging it off as a technical issue that didn't have an easy solution, and therefore they weren't going to look at it further.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Kimberly?
Yeah, so Daryl, when we brought the problem forward, we were first collecting data for our region and found out that it extended beyond. And then we talked about it at the task force and put out through the resource center a document for people to complete statewide so we could track that information. So we do have that, and we can always do it again. The problem is when in that call taking process for that dispatcher to then be able to say, oh, my Anniali was not displaying the information, and the person provided me with a callback number, and then I was able to call it back, and it was the same phone, and now I'm going to take the time to fill out the Google Doc and the form. The problem, I believe, the last time we looked into it was across the entire nation. I mean, it's well discussed. It's a roaming issue, and I believe NASNA even had some information about it. Of course, this is separate than other AT&T issue that you and I talked about, but we may want to go that direction again and bring it up, because I do think we need the FCC to get involved and collect comments and do an OPER. And let's look at these rules, because if they're requiring 911 calls to be processed, which they are, they should also require carriers to pass information through with that 911 call.
Mm-hmm. And I did reach out to NASNA at the time, and Kentucky, stated that they were having issues with this, but I didn't really get any response from the other states. But it's been, I don't know, about at least 6 months since that last round of this discussion. So it might be worth reaching out to them again, and I can do that.
That would be great, Daryl. Thank you. Joe, go ahead.
So two things. One, I'm wondering if ECATS would capture and document these instances without the dispatchers having to make notations of them. And the other thing is, if there's an interest, we could file a petition for rulemaking with the FCC. They don't always act on them, but they go in public notice, and other states might join. And if there's enough support, the commission probably would issue a notice of proposed rulemaking.
Definitely an avenue to look at.
The other thing we could do is we could write the commissioners and ask them to refer it to CISRIC, which is an advisory council of the commission that has technical people from carriers and device manufacturers and so on it.
Okay, that sounds good. I've never heard of that before, so thank you for bringing that up, Joe. I appreciate it. Daryl, or Jennifer, I guess we could talk offline on, how we would go about doing that, because I'm not sure of the steps, but we could certainly have that conversation. But everybody needs to keep bringing this stuff forward, so that we know that a problem is continuing, because now that we've talked about this, I remember all the conversations that we had about this. Daryl said it was about 6 months ago. So if we're continuing to have these issues, then we need to take it forward and, see if we can get some resolution or some fix to it.
Do we know if ECATS would capture the data, the instances?
I am
So
not
Joe, this
sure.
is Jennifer.
Go ahead, Jen.
ECATS will capture NSI related data, but it will not say whether or not there was actually data to be passed and it just didn't come through. At least that's what it was when I was researching that in the PSAP. If it has changed since then I invite someone else to correct me and update that information.
It would also be helpful if we'd already had ECATS, because then it might show an increase in the number of NSI calls based on the timeline of the 3G deprecation. But I don't Obviously we don't have that right now.
Matt, go ahead.
So that is the purpose for our continued tracking of these two different types of call issues, so that we can show a pattern, right? So up to today, Alex and West Coast staff have been tracking them essentially in a spreadsheet. But our hope is that ECATS can then help sort of automate that once we get up and running, so that, maybe this takes a year or two's time worth of statistics from us and other interested parties to then take to the FCC.
Well, Kimberly just put in the chat that they started tracking in November of 22. So, yeah, this has been going on for a little bit of time. It sounds like hopefully we would have enough to go forward with that, but Jennifer and or Daryl, I can talk with you guys after that and see what the next steps would be, if that works for you.
Sure, and I'm actually going to put this on the task force agenda for tomorrow to recap this discussion and maybe put some pressure on our carrier participants on that task force, and we can also discuss next steps at the task force level tomorrow.
Sounds good.
I would also state, if something's going to go to the FCC in sort of an official document, I think the task force would probably be the best place to do that.
Yeah.
Rather than the users group, and maybe there would be a member of the task force who would be willing to, or a participant on the task force for an agency that files with the FCC fairly frequently, Joe, who might be willing to draft something up as in the form of a petition or whatever the task force thinks is appropriate.
That sounds good. And Alex also just put in the chat that it got on their radar for METSA, and they started tracking heavily in 2023. And Joe, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'd be willing to. There's the petition. There was also a few years ago, I wrote a letter to Admiral Simpson raising a couple of issues we concerned with, technical ones, and he referred at least one of them to CISRIC. So there are a couple of ways of going about it.
And for those who aren't familiar with CISRIC, that is the Communications Security, Reliability, and Interoperability Council. FCC holds a CISRIC council every couple of years, and usually they give CISRIC specific topics to address, and then provide advice back to the commission, specifically on safety communications, public safety communications issues.
All right, thanks for that information. Well, this will be, again, and I do agree, Daryl, I think anything should come from the task force and not the ESInet users group. So I'm glad that'll be on the agenda for tomorrow. Any other comments on this? Okay, do we have anything else that anybody would like to bring up? Not hearing anything. All right, the next thing I have is adjournment. So it is 10:40, and I'll give you guys 20 minutes of your day back. Thank you all for everything. And those of you on the committee, I'll talk to you Monday at 1 o'clock. Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everybody.